And welcome to this episode of Kandid Konversation. Today's topic is, why is there a decreasing number of minority teachers in America, and does it matter? Before we tackle that topic, let me introduce myself. I am your host for the show, Rudy Sutherland. I am a serial entrepreneur by occupation and a small business advocate by passion. My partner for the show is Rudy Sutherland Sr., who also doubles as my father, is a retired corporate executive and small business owner in his own right, and who happens to have very strong opinions about everything. Mr. Sutherland, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, and welcome to everyone.
Okay, so let's take a deep dive into this topic. It's pretty controversial. We've talked it uh, uh, I guess we've pretty much talked it at length across the board, trying to figure out ourselves prior to the show exactly what's driving this decreasing number of minority teachers in America. But ultimately, I think what we've come to is agreement on a couple of issues. The first of which as contributing factors, that is. So again, we're in agreement that there are multiple factors and multiple issues that are contributing to this problem set, none of which are a dominant portion. So I want to, before we go into just a general discussion about it, I want to roll down the issues and get your take on it, okay? So the first issue we discussed as being a primary contributor is potentially salary and wages. The salary and wages being paid to teachers across the country, and there's a large disparity between the salaries paid in some parts of the country as opposed to others, based on zip code, based on a whole bunch of individual factors. But in general, surprisingly, teachers from a pure salary standpoint, get paid right in line, I should say, with other occupations, accountants and auditors, nurses. Teachers get paid on average somewhere between, I believe, $35,000 and $45,000 a year as a starting salary, and indeed elevate up to within 2 or 3 years. I think, for instance, 6 to 9 years, teachers at 6 to 9 years, teachers can make upwards of $75,000 to $80,000 a year. Now, those numbers sound pretty good when you look at them on the surface, but when you take a deep dive into them and look at what they correlate to based on the number of hours required of teachers to work, they, on average, teachers get paid on average $2.48 an hour. Okay, as opposed to other areas in the same realm, like childcare, right? The folks that take care of your kid before, after they get out of school and before you can pick them up, from work. They average around $9.28 an hour. And so, there is, based on, if you said, okay, how many hours am I actually working in this occupation, as opposed to the salary that I'm drawing, there is a huge amount of difference between teachers and everyone else. I think there's no denying that it's a challenging job. So my question to you is, how big of a deal do you think wages play in this problem set, or have played in this problem set, or do you not believe that they are a significant factor at all, and why?
Well, I think it's a lower level. Teachers get paid monthly, and I think it has.
They get paid.
They
Really?
get
I
paid
didn't know that.
monthly. Yes, they do.
Everywhere. Now, oh, wait, are you sure? Because
Yeah, this is all around the country. If you've ever did
wow.
work for in the education field, you know they only pay by the month.
Okay.
And,
Now that's interesting. That's something that's an interesting
that's the
fact,
reason
because
why the hours they get paid so little an hour because um,
they get one check per month.
one check per month.
Wow. You know what? I wish you'd have told me that before the show, because I would have liked to have taken a deeper dive into that. Okay. Well, I'll take that at face value. I think that's something I'm going to look up later on, and get more details on. But you don't think that you don't think that, despite the fact that they're paid such a low amount on a per hour basis, that has any bearing on minority individuals wanting to become teachers or
Well,
remain teachers?
Well, I don't think it's a major issue. I think it is a bottom issue, and that's where it is. I don't think you don't go into teaching, you know, thinking about the money because
Well,
there
I
are.
mean, I think that's pretty assumptive on your obvious. Well, obviously based on the salary, but here's my thought on the wage issue. I've often thought that folks become teachers out of a passion. So at least it used to be that you were passionate about wanting to make a difference and contribute to
The community.
the growth and development of the next generation, that type of thing. And it seems to me that that was the case, but now it seems more so that it's almost like a de facto default mechanism if you can't find work, in say your chosen field of study, that you get a teacher certification as insurance to make sure that you still have a paycheck coming in as a substitute or whatever the case may be. And then in many cases, if there's a downturn in your industry, you might teach. I mean, that's what I've taught in talking to folks uh, who are, say, of the current generation, that type of thing. There's less of a passion driver and more of a practical driver. Um, and so, anyway, that's my thought on the wage issue. I think that if wages were higher for teachers, that there would be a greater interest in becoming a teacher by folks, purely because of the fact that all things considered equal, people want to be paid commensurate with what they believe their time is worth. And I don't think, I wouldn't teach, mainly because the cost benefit wouldn't be there. But I think that goes to some of the other issues. Let's go to the next issue: classroom control. We both talked about the fact that when we were in grammar school. Now, of course, we went through school in Chicago, which is first through eighth grade in one building. In the South and in many parts of, I believe, even the West, some of the Western states, there is elementary school, then there's intermediate school, then there's junior high, and then there's high school. So you got four different scenarios. So it's a different dynamic. But in all of those, one of the things that we did note was that there's a level of control that teachers used to have over defining the classroom, the classroom protocols, even the curriculum itself, that they don't have anymore, by way of another one of our issues, which is standardized testing. In other words, what I've said to you, and I want you to state your thoughts here live. My thought is that by creating this standardized testing scenario, what you've done in effect is made it possible for someone to merely sit in front of a classroom and dole out information for the sole purpose of passing a test, as opposed to learning for the sake of progress in thought leadership as these kids grow and matriculate through an education system. So, that said, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think because of that, they have taken away some of the teachers'
Autonomy?
uh, imagination and
Okay,
his
okay.
teaching ability. And after a while, a person starts saying, well, I I have no control over it, so I'm not really
You're not
doing my
invested.
job. I mean,
Right.
really, that's how some
Yeah.
teachers feel now.
No, and I can empathize with that. I mean, if you don't have an investment in defining a curriculum or coming up with what you're actually going to be passing on to these kids, how can you expect it? How can you be expected to be able to lean in on the situation and feel positive about what you're doing when you played no role in it? I mean, I get that. My question to you is, how significant of a role does that play in the reason why we have this decreasing number of minority?
But I think
Well, I
that
mean, why aren't white teachers doing the same thing? Shouldn't all teachers be decreasing, right? Shouldn't there be a decreasing statistic for teachers overall? What's the big deal? What's the significance of this whole minority issue?
well, I think privatization has played um, a big part of this situation because now they can put anyone in the teacher's seat. They don't have to be uh, a, a great teacher or a good teacher. They can just put you out there. All you have to do is teach them how to pass a test and stay within the restrictions of what they're saying. So, I mean, it's no accomplishment for a teacher these days to feel good about themselves and what they're teaching. So I think
So you're saying again. So you're saying now you said earlier to that extent you were talking to me about the charter school situation as opposed to the public school situation where charter schools are probably given more autonomy and the ability to do in the classroom setting or to be more creative in the process so that therefore there's a sense of accomplishment in having defined something and then noting that it is successful by virtue of the byproduct, which is ultimately how the kids perform, right? So the greatest test of a teacher, in my opinion, is the ability they have to convey knowledge to the children in a way that then the children are able to be actionable either in testing and in life, right? Both. It shouldn't just be the test.
that's right.
They're taking. It should be an actionable. It should be an actionable component there in life, measured in life as well. And so, but that goes to another issue that we talked, and I'm just going to daisy chain these in, right? Child discipline. Okay. My thought, when you start talking about what we were used to, I had teachers when I was in grammar school and first through eighth grade. I had teachers that would take it upon them to unapologetically discipline me and my fellow students when we did something wrong, or and parents I think were more committed to and took and were more open to that discipline taking place. Now, in this day and time, teachers are much more restricted, are restricted to a greater extent than we were in disciplining children, and parents in general are not as active, I would say, today as they were when we both were going through in our respective generations. We're going through grammar school, first through eighth grade, that type of thing. My question to you is there a level of frustration that minority teachers might feel because they are and would want to be more hands-on from a discipline standpoint than, say, their white counterparts? Or is that much ado about nothing?
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that uh, teachers have lost control, and also teachers used to be respected.
Mm.
And today, there is very little respect for teachers. And it's funny how parents is part of that problem. And I mean, it's you can see the difference. If you've been in a classroom now, as opposed to when I went to school and I had a nun as a teacher, if she said something and you didn't respond, she give you that look and you automatically get up out of your seat and do what you were supposed to do.
Well, there was a little bit of physical discipline involved with those nuns too,
Well,
right?
let me tell you something. Back then, they didn't have to be physical. They could have been physical maybe one time. They hit you
Right,
with the ruler, and that's it. And if
right.
they give you that look, you don't want to be hit with the ruler. So you give them the respect that they need. The
So you
teachers
saying that okay?
today.
So not just the same. It's not just you're not saying that it's just the respect issue in the community, right? As an occupation, that the respect level is there at the community level. You're saying that the students themselves have a disjointed or lower or a lack of respect for teachers, and therefore frustrate any would-be teachers into saying,
And
Thank
I
you. I'm
think
not
that
gonna.
has a lot
I
to
don't have
do
to
with
do that.
parents. I think
Right.
that has a lot to do with the parents today.
Okay. Okay.
So
So just to put it in a nutshell, here's the thought. Here would be the rationale as a teacher. Okay. So now I'm getting paid $2, in effect $2.38 an hour, and I for that amount, I am basically converted into a robot by virtue of having no control over the means and methods by which I teach my student body, because I'm teaching them to the ultimate goal of having them pass a standardized test, as opposed to, and oh yeah, by the way, if they just happen to be able to turn these into life skills, that's a good thing. But hey, I'm not supposed to really care about that. I'm supposed to celebrate their passing a standardized test. And in the event that they are unruly in the classroom setting, I can't touch them, can't do anything to them for fear that the school might get sued and me too. So why should I do this? What's my incentive? Or to go to a Hollywood set? What's my motivation in taking this, in becoming a teacher in the first place? Now, does that synopsize to this point, up to this point in our discussion, what you would consider to be the logical progress here, or am I off base? Is that frustration enough to say, therefore,
that's
instead of
not all
becoming a
the
teacher?
frustration, but when you lose, when you have poor student support, that means you have to have support of your administration, support from your parents, support from the children. You don't
Okay.
have that. And I think that is one of the major problems why teachers don't want to be teachers anymore, and
Okay.
why they
Okay.
why they stray away.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Um, there are two more variables here that I want to introduce to see how they would holistically play, because ultimately I want to know from you what needs to happen, right, for this situation to be resolved, and for more
Turn.
minority teachers to want to teach, or if regardless of anything that happens, that won't happen. But so we talked about teacher evaluation. We know from many of the readings that we shared that teacher evaluation is a hugely controversial issue for teachers, particularly in some of the minority school districts, because teachers are evaluated based on how these kids perform. And there's a statistic, I think out of the, what was it, the labor, hold up, it was the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the National Education Association, that said that minority schools and school districts with high minority populations perform lower, and that is reflective in the evaluation of the teachers that are teaching in those areas, and that by extension there's generally a larger percentage of minority teachers teaching in minority districts than otherwise. So is it, is that enough in and of itself to make you say, listen, you're setting me up for failure. You're putting me, a minority teacher, just because I'm minority, in a minority school district to teach minority kids, where the same metrics for their performance is used, as it would be in an affluent area where the students have more resources, presumably, have parents that have a greater participation level in their education, and so forth. You're setting me up for failure. Is that enough to say, no? I'll no, I'll become a police officer. I'm not, or perhaps not a police officer. I'm going to
Well,
become a nuclear physicist or something. I mean, what
well,
is that enough?
if you're going to be micromanaged and put in a certain situation, you would too look
Be
at the
frustrated.
situation
Oh
and
yeah.
says, I mean, it makes sense. It make
Okay.
it makes sense. You know, I mean, I mean, I know I wouldn't want to deal with something that I have no idea of how um,
Gonna measure my
you're
success,
going to
or
measure
yeah,
what I'm doing if you're going to put all these limitations on me. I
right,
mean, look at all the limitations. No control. Can't do anything with the children. You can't use your imagination. All you have to do is teach them how to do a test, and that does not that is not fulfilling. I think the job of being a teacher used to be fulfilling
hmm,
to whoever the teacher was, and with the fact that they are denying them uh, the the ability to upgrade themselves to get ahead. I think, and you're putting them in a little box.
right, right,
I
right,
mean, you can't go nowhere, and if you don't get a good evaluation, your reputation is shot.
right. And you know what? Here's the thing. The reason why I really like this discussion is because neither one of us are subject matter experts on this. We're just Joe Snuffy citizens, right? Applying common sense to a problem that apparently has just been belaboring the country for years, for decades now. Now, the final variable that we want to talk is the quality of life of a teacher. Now, commensurate with their salary that we agree is abysmal relative to the hourly rate, there is what they're supposed to do with that. It's your quality of life. If I'm only making, um, 40,000 a year, and obviously if I'm getting paid on average $2 and some change, that would mean that I'm working a lot of hours, which also means that I can't take, say, a second job or do something outside to increase my take-home pay, which means that I'm living on $40,000 a year, right? And also, oh yeah, by the way, there's a statistic that speaks to minorities having a greater amount of student loan debt when they graduate than non-minorities. So I'm servicing out of $40,000 a year, and that's gross income, right? We're not talking about what they actually take home, which is roughly probably about more in line with 28, 29,000. I'm having to service student loan debt. And oh yeah, by the way, I'm probably young and I want to live a little bit. I'd like to go out every now and again and hang out and maybe travel, be able to do some things other than just work. I mean, I'm graduating from school. I'm not trying to dedicate all of my time to another full-time occupation per se with the demands that I had when I was in school. But yet here I am, and I'm doing the exact same thing as a teacher. What do you think what do you think of that as a contributing factor to the overall equation? How significant is that? Do you think it's just? I personally think that's a huge component of dissatisfaction. What do you think?
Uh, I'm I seem to want to go with you. I think that is 25% of the problem. If I
Okay.
had to give it a number, uh, because if you're going to be uh, rated and you can't uh, expand or go anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be making around $40,000 for a few years, and
Right,
it's not
right.
going to get any better.
Right, right. No, that's a good point. So you're
There's
talking you're talking a
ocean,
situation where you
you
can't get
know.
raises because you're not performing. It's like so basically if we look at this and I we've gone a long way around this, but essentially this is a composite of this is the way I would summarize it. If you increase the wages of the teachers to something more in line with the importance of their role in creating the ultimately the byproduct of this generation for our continuing the society at the level or better than what we currently have. You've got to pay these people commensurate with that. And then the second thing is you've got to give them some control. Nobody likes to be micromanaged, either in a corporate scenario, well, I should say, I take that back. In a military scenario, yeah, you can expect to be micromanaged to a large extent depending on what you do. But from a corporate standpoint, or from an occupational standpoint in the private sector, nobody likes to be micromanaged. You want to have some level of autonomy, granted with accountability, but nevertheless some level of autonomy. And then, of course, we really need to downplay or add or dumb down this dependence on standardized testing, because honestly, I just think that it's an easy way out from a measurement standpoint, but it's a poor indicator, specifically for students in the minority communities, of intellectual capital, and because there's no way you can standardize life experience. So how is it that you can actually have standardized testing? It just baffles my mind.
It's unjust,
right? And so that point of frustration is one that the teachers are having, or one that would easily get in, start teaching, and the attrition level must be horrendous for that. You get in and you're frustrated because you want to teach these kids. You started teaching because you really wanted to teach them, right? You had ways and things that you wanted to do, mechanisms that you wanted to put in place and so forth, and then you're told that no, you have to boilerplate teach this way, right? I couldn't do it, but then these kids today are probably badder if they're such. Yeah, I don't think I'd get in any trouble saying these kids are probably badder than we were, mainly because we knew that there was 2 repercussions to acting up in school, right?
And then we had more respect.
That your teacher was going to light into you, but then when they told your parents, you knew mommy and daddy was going to light in your behind too. That's not so much the case anymore, and that's got to be a point of frustration for the teachers, because it's like, I don't have anybody backing me up, and I can't touch these kids.
And they don't respect you.
And they don't respect me. Now then you say, okay, after I do all of that, go through all that rigmarole, the evaluation criteria for how I'm performing is based on all the above. And so again, you're setting me up for failure. How long does someone stay in a position to where I'm being set up for failure? Based on the evaluation criteria, I can never qualify for a raise. So I'm stuck spinning my wheels at $40,000 a year. And oh yeah, by the way, the final component is I got to pay all of this debt back at some point off of this minuscule salary. So if all of those issues are addressed, our contention, and tell me if you're in agreement, Mr. Sutherland, if all of those issues are addressed at some level, proportionately, and given serious consideration, we believe that the number of minority teachers over time will increase as knowledge of these changes being made gets out into the greater population, and that the resulting fact will be that more minority teachers will be spawned, agnostic of where they teach. Whether it's if you have to have specific evaluation criteria for certain geographies, why not come up with it? I think it's just pure laziness on our part because of the importance that these teachers play. Now, the final issue, Mr. Sutherland, I want to ask you, is it important for minority students to see teachers that look like them in the classroom? Because that goes to the final question. Does any of this matter? Right? If it does not matter whether or not the teacher that's sitting in front of you, right, looks like you, right? Does that have an influence on, one, you deciding to become a teacher yourself because you see that affinity? But two, does that play any role in the reception of the material being taught when the teacher that's standing in front of you looks like you? Now, I just want to say this. When I was in grammar school, and again, going through 1st through 8th grade, I had many teachers that were white, that were, I would say, Puerto Rican, okay, not just black. And I don't think that I related to any one of them by virtue of race, one way or the other, even gender, right? It was really the quality of their teaching. Now, that's just my perspective. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I sort of agree in, but I think that in certain situations, uh, when a teacher um, is a minority teacher and is teaching a minority uh, child, I think it means a lot at younger ages
Yeah.
as opposed to as you get older.
Yeah, that I can agree. I would say like maybe first. I would say maybe kindergarten through maybe third or fourth grade. Yeah, but then
And
at some point,
also,
yeah.
a teacher needs to know that if I go out there and get a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, that I'm gonna get paid appropriately. But if you do that and you're a teacher, you're not going to get paid appropriately. And I don't blame them for not going into it. But if like we said, if they give them control, they let them use their imagination, they get the respect that they need, they get the money that they need, I think they'll come back. But right now, with them privatizing uh, a lot of the schools now, and they don't have what I call good regulations, to
Hmm.
deal with the teachers. I mean, you can put anybody in there now, and I've been told uh, that um,
But is that
some
by
of these,
design? Wait a minute. But is
yeah,
that
some of
by
these,
design?
yeah, but some of these schools are good, and some of them are really bad.
Wait a minute. But
I
wait, hold
got
up.
two.
Are we in
I got
agreement?
two
Let me ask you
instances for
this.
you: New
Let me
Orleans and Washington D.C.
let me ask
Two
you
of the
this.
worst
Listen.
ones,
Okay,
charter
a
schools.
school. Wait a minute. Let me make this point. And if you disagree, let me know. But I don't believe that a school can be good or bad. The school is a representation of the teachers that teach there. So when you say a school is good or bad, that can change. When I was now in full disclosure, I have taught at the collegiate level, right? Both undergrad and graduate. And I would argue that at any given time, a school can be better or worse. And these are drastic shifts from year to year, depending on what teachers are there teaching, the quality of the teachers any given year, and the attrition of them moving to other schools, that type of thing. So sometimes there's a lag. You may have 4 or 5 solid teachers this year, and the testing goes up and all that. So this school is looked at being top tier, right? But that next year, those 4 teachers are stolen by other schools by given higher pay or whatever, and now this school is still being ranked as if those teachers are there. Again, a school. I would make the point and argue this point adamantly. A school is only as good at any given time as the quality of teaching and teachers that are a part of that school. Period.
And I don't fully agree with that because I think it has a lot to do with the administration, and it also has a lot to do with the state.
But I'm saying to you that the administration, I get the point you're making, but the administration and the state are not in the classroom teaching the students. It's the teachers that are ultimately executing. An administration can only provide an ecosystem, right? The state can
No,
only contribute to
they
the
provide
ecosystem.
they provide the parameters for you to teach. If they tell
Understand?
you no imagination, just teach this way, that's where you're going to
But
teach.
so then maybe we need to qualify what we're calling a good school. We may want to say that there's a schools
A
have
good
good
school,
infrastructure, but that does not necessarily. So a school can have, in my opinion, arguably good infrastructure, but poor teaching, and vice versa.
that's
Yes.
possible. What I'm saying is a good school has three things going for it: good teaching, good administration, and a state that would allow them the control that they need.
Okay. So then, it's a three-legged stool. I get that, and I can say that I can agree to that. I can agree to that. So okay. Well, listen. I think we beat this horse to death today. And is there anything you want to say in closing?
Um, I think that um, we have um, neglected teachers enough, and that we should turn around, give them the respect that they need, and also uh, let them know that we are behind them. And I think that's the biggest problem that we have, is because parents are not behind teachers like they were back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
When I was coming up, I mean, my teacher told my mother something, boy, and if she didn't go down the right way, I was gonna get towed up.
Right, right.
Teacher didn't
I
have.
agree. I think that it cuts both ways. Um, you know, there has to be some happy medium between what these teachers are dealing with today. Some happy medium established between what tools they're given today as to what teachers had years past. If parents are not as participative today as they were in years past, something that has to be compensated for. And I think that those are the issues that are not being addressed. I think that we're looking at everything from either too high a level or too singular a level. I think what we've done here is we've said that there's no silver bullet. There's going to be, there needs to be, in order for some change to occur, there needs to be a proportionate addressing of all of the issues that we've touched on today. Yes?
That's good to me. I think
Okay.
that's about as good a true statement as you could
Okay.
get.
You know what? I think. Hold up. This moment warrants documenting. I have shut up Rudy Sutherland Sr. So on that note, we're going to end today's session of Candid Conversation, and we want to wish all of you a productive week. And we'll see you next time on Candid Conversation. And make sure, if you guys can, make sure that you leave us some notes on whichever version of the video you see. If let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. We've been doing this for a couple of weeks now, and we'd like to get some feedback from you. So, again, thanks so much for your time, and we hope you enjoy the show. Take care.